I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and today's February 2nd, and I think, David, Groundhog Day today? Yes. So Puxaconnie Phil, did he see a shadow? It's a big thing for me in Houston now, whether he sees a shadow or not. No, he didn't see a shadow. So 6 more weeks of winter in Houston. Okay. So I recognize, being the last speaker, that I'm the only thing that's standing before you, between you and lunch. So any questions? Okay. I'm done. Okay. So this was how I dressed at a recent speaking engagement I had at the center. This was at an opportunity to work with some staff. So when I started thinking about preparing for today, after Janet had asked me to do this, and never say no to Janet, I, of course, Googled Jewish engagement. So what came up first was Chabad. So take that for what it's worth. Later on down the list, Amazon.com came up. And I looked at that and I said, why Amazon? Engagement rings. Jewish engagement, engagement rings, Amazon. So what's that? So it made me think a little bit about this whole concept of engagement and the analogy of 2 adults who meet, date, get engaged, and then live a life for many, many years. And the kinds of things that happen that go from an initial date to spending a life together. And so I started thinking about some of the core values that were associated with relationships and the kinds of components that were associated with a relationship based on this concept of Jewish engagement. So we exist in our world in JCCs to make Jewish life meaningful. So I'm going to share with you what I believe are some core values and guiding principles that can lead to meaningful Jewish engagement. So most of you who know me, I tend to look at things on a very basic, pragmatic kind of level and kind of simple kind of thinking. So I'm going to share with you 7 or 8 different concepts around creating meaningful Jewish engagement. So the first is change our title from Chief Executive Officer to Chief Engagement Officer. Okay? It all starts at the top. We set the tone, we create the vision, we articulate the vision, and implement the strategies. So go back and change our job description from Chief Executive to Chief Engagement Officer. Second, engagement opportunities are everywhere. 5-6 years ago, when I started some outreach programming in Houston, I think my mindset was what engagement opportunities were outside the walls of the J. Well, that's not really the case anymore. Engagement opportunities are everywhere, and you have to look for opportunities for where they exist. So it's not just outside or inside, they're everywhere. Third, and I've grown to this concept over time, and I really believe in hiring for talent and not experience. It's critically important to hire for talent. Soft skills are essential. You can't train personality. Staff must possess the soft skills and the confidence to create, manage, and steward relationships. And I'll give you 2 examples. 8 months ago, I hired a new fitness director whose personality could light up this room. He's a teacher, taught a spinning class for us. His day job was working in a video company. We were looking for a fitness director. Came to me and said, I really want to change. I really want looking for something different. Went through an interview process, hired him. And so we're providing the supplemental training of the fitness, which is a much easier thing to do than to teach the skills of the personality. The second is, about 1.5 years ago, hired a new director of annual giving. She had been working in the Jewish world for 10 years in another area, had never done any fundraising, has all the soft skills in the world, all the engagement experiences. So we hired her, but at the time we hired her, 90 days into her job, we partnered her with a development coach, a development firm, a fundraising firm, that she worked with for 6 months. So I can't teach the personality. I can teach how to fundraise and the donor and brought in an outside resource. So this skill set of hiring for talent, to me, is a critical piece as it looks in terms of the concept of engagement. Whoa. There you go. Informal conversations are critically important. You've heard my colleagues made reference to it earlier. So follow the logic here. Informal conversations lead to program participation. Program participation leads to engagement. So you have to provide that training for informal conversations. Again, it's a skill set and a confidence that staff need to develop. And it's part of the benchmarking piece, but it's an important piece. And if you follow it, that process, informal conversations, programs lead to engagement. First impressions are critical. Going back to the analogy about a couple who just starts and dates, you may not get asked out again if that first impression is not really important. Programs must be excellent. So J's are program-driven institutions. Program participation leads to engagement. You won't be able to create meaningful engagement if programs are subpar. Our constituency, our communities, are very critical consumers. They want excellent programs. So we can talk about all the soft skills and all the engagement and all the strategies we want, but if the program and services we're delivering on the ground are not excellent, it doesn't matter. Manage expectations. Engagement may only lead to engagement. Okay? So be clear about what your agenda is as it relates to developing as outreach and engagement. So we've done some series of programs, and I remember when we first started about trying to talk with the board about that we were serving non-members, and that outreach may not lead to membership, and that's an okay thing. So part of the concept I learned many years ago in social work school was the notion about trusting the process. Good engagement. Steve's smiling there. And I'm going to have other social workers. I went to Wurzweiler. That was a piece that David as well. It was trust that process. That good engagement experiences or good programs potentially will lead to other levels of engagement in the center, whether it's membership, whether they become donors, whether they become volunteers. But don't go in with that as the agenda. That may become a byproduct of it, but be clear about what the agenda is, and the agenda is to create that kind of engagement. Minimize or eliminate barriers. Don't put out there membership requirements, high program fees. We started, our signature outreach program is called Mishpacha and Me. And when we started that process, and it's probably 5-6 years ago, before we even launched the program, I went to the board and I said, we're going to describe the program. That means we're going to do programming on Shabbat morning, which we hadn't been doing. We're going to program on Shabbat afternoon, which we hadn't been doing. We're going to program on the high holidays, which we have obviously not been doing. We're going to program on festival days, which we have not been doing. So the board had to get comfortable with the fact of saying as we look to create different levels of engagement, that it was going to require change in policy. So part of this initiative here, as you think about engagement, is anticipate what the barriers are and where you may have to change your operations, your policies, and your practices to drop those walls in order to make access as easy as possible. We started an I don't want to call it afternoon Hebrew school program, but that's what it is. We call it Judaic Explorers in the fall, a new initiative. I think we're charging $45 for the year. Again, it was an opportunity to engage families and a very nominal fee as a way to create new areas. So think about not just the program pieces, but put yourselves in the shoes of those who are going to engage in those experiences in terms of what those barriers are to make it as easy as possible. It's all about positioning. So how we position the J creates engagement. Our partnerships, our collaborations, how we use our walls in terms of who comes into our program, who we collaborate with, how we position our brands. This is all about positioning. Positioning puts a message out there in terms of what we're going to be involved with. And we, the CEO, the Chief Engagement Officer, is in charge of that positioning. It's how we allocate our resources, our staff, our volunteers, our financial resources, and put the J in positions to create kind of engagement. So we had an experience in Houston, which May 28th of 2015, we call it the Memorial Day floods. We had some significant damage in homes. There were 800 homes in our area that were flooded. And the center put itself right in the middle of the recovery efforts, both in terms of as a facility, in terms of dispensing cleaning supplies and packaging supplies, et cetera, and food and water, et cetera, but also hosted a series of recovery events. So one of the things I was very concerned about is how this was going to impact the neighborhood long term. So I was concerned about community life because this represents the next generation, not about today, but this represents how we respond as a community, represents the next generation for the JCC and the surrounding areas. So I was concerned about the image of quality of life in and around the JCC. So we put together a series of, we organized a series of meetings with elementary school and high school principals and clergy and church leaders and et cetera. And one of the byproducts now is the J is taking the lead, working with 10 different homeowners associations to create a new website for the area that talks about quality of life. Because again, it's about how we use our resources and how we position it, because ultimately what that's going to do is that's how people perceive the center and the center's role in terms of quality of, impacting the quality of life in the community. And that, again, creates different levels of engagement. So as CEOs, of Chief Engagement Officers, we have to always be cognizant of where we put ourselves and how we put ourselves. Bill made reference to people he sees at meetings, hadn't been seen at meetings, hadn't been seen at meetings. Those things get noticed. And those create the partnerships and collaborations going forward. The last piece here is, it's a transactional relationships lead to meaningful engagement. This is probably one of the most important concepts that I put out there for the staff. A transaction is a parent signing a child up for day camp. It's a paper transaction. They give us a credit card, we charge it, kid gets dropped off on the first day, they get picked up they drop off at 9 o'clock, picked up at 3:30, may never see the parent. So we talk a lot with our staff around how do you take that transaction and then create an engagement experience. Okay? So with camp, we've created a series of Shabbat activities so that it brings the family into the building and into an experience and not just serving the child. Okay? We've started doing that with our Melton program. So Melton, they come once a week for 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is, and then they're gone. So now we've created a community of what we call community of learners, where they have Shabbat dinners together, and a whole series of kind of activities that goes from the transaction, which is the business component of the relationship, to a different level of engagement. So I encourage you, and we do this all the time, I encourage you to talk with you, to think about, take a program, and think about how you can shift it from a transactional relationship to an engagement. And we have a large gymnastics program. And three, 4 times a year, the girls' competitive team have different sleepovers at their kids' home, at different homes. So it forms bonds, it forms relationships. And so we have a Saturday night kids' night out program. And I think once every couple of months, we have Havdalah beforehand for the families. So again, it's we want it, in order for us to move that needle around engagement, you can't do it always through the child. You have a kid, a 2-year-old, or somebody in the infant care program in early childhood, you're providing high quality child care. But if you want to get to the meaningful Jewish engagement, you got to figure out how you're going to connect to those families and create those kind of environments. So to me, this is one of, we talk about this a lot in terms of this notion about transactional relationship to moving along this continuum in terms of engagement and how do you get there. So here's some examples, and I just want to go briefly through some of these. Mishpacha Mi is I'd say our signature outreach program. It's our public space Judaism program. We're doing Shabbat activities throughout the city. We're doing picnics in the park on the holidays. We're doing Passover Seders. We're connecting to families where they are. So we have 2 dual strategies taking place with this. One is in the area of large kind of group events. So a week ago Sunday, we had over 100 people at the Museum of Natural History celebrating Tu B'Shvat. And then we do Shabbat dinners in people's homes. Judaic Explorers is our after-school Hebrew school program. I put the Shlicha up there because we've been participating with the JTC Association of Israel's office and the Jewish Agency, having a member, we have a Shlicha this year on our staff. She's working with teens and going to public schools where there is very little Jewish activity. We just started a new initiative with alumni from Birthright and creating programming for alumni of Birthright, which she's leading. Here's an Israeli working with young adults who just got off a plane and excited about their Israel experience, that now has an opportunity to engage with a Shlicha. We have a community concierge program, which does a lot of public space Judaism. We use, and I say we use, but planfully use our film festival, our theater programs, our education programs as a way to create engagement. And I mentioned earlier about flood relief. And we have a wide variety of Israel programs. So what this does is it serves lots of different populations and connects them to the center. 2 other comments. One is I'm an advocate and a believer in benchmarking. We learn about how we're doing as a community, as a JCC, in this program participation and fulfilling our Jewish mission and connecting to people and et cetera, through benchmark. It's a report card, and it's good data. And so if you're participating in it, great. If you're not, I would encourage you to, because I think that kind of information, and it all starts with hello, but all starts with this notion of informal conversations. Is good stuff and comes out of the benchmarking. So I put that out there to you as an endorsement to that. And last piece is, in closing, these are all interrelated. They're not independent. They have to be. This is all pieces to a puzzle. And so look at it in holistically and look at it in totally. The second comment I'll make in terms of this is, these things take time. Be patient. Allow that, the analogy of the big, ship in the sea to turn slowly. It takes time to turn slowly. It takes time to impact community. It takes time to create different kind of perceptions. It takes time to put programs out there and create success. So be patient. But the most important thing is, it's all about us as the chief engagement officers. We set the tone. And we have to take that lead and put ourselves out there and exercise our leadership. The other concept I'll share with you is that I don't think it's about leadership. Sometimes we talk about the concept of risk taking. Risk is a feeling. Okay, what we do is leadership. Some parts of our leadership may feel risky. Okay, but it's all about leadership. So I'll leave those thoughts with you. Thank you very much.